with all the craziness going on. He thought some of the baseball boys could, put some stuff together and get our minds off of all the insanity that's going on in the outside world. So maybe 20 or 30 minutes of a good distraction here. We're going to start with hitting. So that's my forte. And I have a cage in Norwood. I do, one-on-one, pretty much one-on-one, small group, private hitting type stuff. Years ago, I did run a cage. Been obsessed with hitting for, 35 years. Read every book, podcast, hit with everyone in the world, follow all the gurus on Twitter, you name it. I've tried it and done it. And so we were coming up with the idea for this, and I know there's a lot of myths that certainly everyone my age grew up listening to, and things that were just pounding our head and are still taught today. So Brett kind of said, how about just three good things, three myths right off there's dozens of myths that can be busted easily with hitting. As long as there's one golden rule of hitting, and that's it. You have to defer to the all-time best hitters in-game home run swings. That's it. That's all that you should be teaching. That's all that matters. Unless it's an extreme example, obviously 0-2 a guy on third, you got to put the ball in play. But 99 times out of 100, you want to be copying what Barry Bonds does in a game, what Trout does on a bomb in a game. Yelich, Pujols, Manny, Cabrera, all those guys, the guys that can hit 30 bombs a year and hit 330 a year. Not the guys that hit 30 bombs a year and hit 230 a year. Like, and I'm dating myself here, the Rob Deers, the Pete Incavillas, these are guys from the 80s, the Ron Kittles, Adam Dunn, a more recent guy, 30, 40 bombs a year, 230 strikeouts a year, he'd hit 220. There are huge mechanical differences why Pujols could hit 330 a year and Dunn hit 230. It was not just hand-eye coordination. But anyways, the myths that we grew up with, there's tons of them, like I said, but the first three just off the bat that we were talking about was the first thing that I teach anyone that comes to me. I don't care if they're 5 or 55. I don't care if they're just trying to make a high school freshman team or they play independent ball. Whoever they are, usually the first flaw of every hitter involves this, hands. So I heard all these phrases growing up, all these phrases at coaches' conventions, throw again in the 80s, John Manley, oh dude, Manley has such great hands, quick hands, Wade Boggs has tremendous hands. Everything was hands, hands, hands. Hands inside the ball, throw your hands, quick hands, get your hands to the ball, all this hands phrase type stuff. So the first thing I have to correct is that poor movement and that's myth number one, is bringing your hands inside the ball or throw the hands. If I bring my hands inside the ball, and I know we're not that wide, but I have a tee here. It might not be in the picture, but if I bring my hands inside the ball, like, guys that coach at D1 programs say, then I do this. If the tee's here, so they want to get inside, they talk about inside the ball, okay? So right there, now when I turn, look at this. This is not a position of leverage at all. Why? Because my hands moved prior and independently of anything else. So they moved first and by themselves, prior and independent. This is why no one in the world should be teaching one-arm drills, but they do, because I can swing with one arm and it just promotes a push. So if you weigh 200 pounds and you bring the knob inside the ball, well, you're not hitting with 200 pounds, now you're hitting with 5 or 10 pounds. wrist, forearms, and that's it, and arms. So it doesn't matter how big your quads are, it doesn't matter how much you can bench, it's this, that's it. So hands inside the ball is, any hand cue is probably the worst cue in hitting, okay? If I do that, then I just get a pushy, slap and Judy, slap the ball the other way. You might crank out. Look, I personally did this for years in the Yockey League. I would hit, 300-400, whatever, and just all duck snorts to right field. Just all bloops. No leverage, no force behind the barrel into the ball. So myth number one is bring your hands inside the ball. And I know there's a lot of guys that run AAU programs that coach knob to the ball. Knob to the ball. That's the same as hands inside the ball. Bring that knob, right? I'll see guys that rent out 4 batting cages and they're screaming at all their teams. They do these hands inside the ball. Well, what I think they're trying to say is what they mean, but they're not phrasing it right, is don't lose your barrel. Don't get around the ball. But the cure isn't bring your hands inside the ball. The correct cue is don't add space here. If you add space, if I go that way, if I add space, right there, pros will say, oh, I lost my barrel. You lost your barrel. Right, when you do that, that's it, you're done. There's no recouping, okay? The barrel just went, and you're going to get out, away from your core and around the ball. And that's how you get hooks, rollovers, or a ball that you do square up, and, it goes over the third baseman's head on a bullet, and then it lands 10 feet foul. You hooked it. And your dad, your coaches, your teammates say, nice piece, straighten it out. And guys that pitch and catch say, it's a strike, okay? From a pitcher's perspective, I pitch a little bit here and there. I love when a guy hooks the ball hard because that tells me so many things about his swing as to what kind of pitches he can handle, what areas of the zone, in and out, and depth-wise, okay? So they should be saying, don't lose your barrel and get around the ball. But they're saying hands inside ball. The actual proper cue is don't add space at launch. So launch, this is right there, that's the key. Don't add space at launch. If you do, in any direction, you'll never create as much leverage as you possibly could. So, I've got a few more guys in here now. Duck snorts, yeah, exactly. So, when I used to literally do drills to practice that, because when you see a former pro or a college coach on stage at a convention who has dudes get drafted and he's up there in front of 300 people, at Foxwoods at a coach's convention, and he says he's doing all this stuff, well then I would go and do it. Oh, he does that drill, it must be right. Now, of course, more recent years, the last 15 years or so, now we get YouTube, which is key because that's when you can look at Mike Trout's in-game home run swing, and it doesn't look like that at all. Even Trout himself tells A-Rod on an interview that he does this, but in game, he's this. So the leverage point is it's a huge misconception, his hands, and that's like learning how to count before you do math. Almost every time, the first thing I have to fix with guys is hands, okay? And I know you guys aren't my typical target audience here. Guys that are 30 and 40, the last thing you want to be told is how to hit. But, a lot of you guys get kids playing ball now, high school, college, and I know these guys that teach this stuff, and some of them played, they have credentials. They played here and there, and they charge big money, and their AAU program charges huge money, and you think, oh, this dude knows his stuff. And if you just compare it to in-game film, you can just shatter the myth of hands. In 6 seconds, it's a piece of cake. And if you don't believe me, just hit off the tee yourself. Hit off the tee with this, just this, compared to that. So, why do I have a half bat? Well, this is to test where your hands go. So, if I put the half bat kind of up over the ump's head, where does it go? I'll do like a half-speed check swing to contact. So when I do that, most guys get there. But you should be here. And how? Most guys do this, straight line, it's shortest distance, A to B, straight line, and they do this instead of that. What did I do that was different? My hand pivot point is different. Amateur or not the great hitters, and there are a lot of major leaguers that have an amateur level swing. I'm saying not the great hitters have a hammer hand pivot point. So what that means is, so I'm going to hammer a nail. I'm just going to hammer a nail right here. See this motion right there? Okay, but now my nail is sideways. See that? Here's another one. Palm up, palm down. I know you've heard that phrase. I've heard it for 20, 30 years. When I have a hammer hand pivot point, that causes hooks and rollovers, and you get a very limited window for hitting as far as, depth within your swing. You can only hit inner third, probably belt high, way out in front of the plate. That's it. Your hot zone is like here. So any good slider low and away, something that drops late, you're going to get owned. Okay, so hammer hand pivot point is just that leads to choppy ground balls, all kinds of stuff. No barrel depth. What I did was this. A perpendicular hand pivot point that swivels. So what's perpendicular? My forearm to the bat, 90 degrees, capital L, whatever. And I just swivel. And look at the matching of a bat path I now have with Mike Trout on his best swings. Perp, swivel, not hammer, hand. A good cue to, you want to help your kids, or a good way to self-check yourselves, because you guys all play. If you're wearing a watch, take a check swing. Pretend you got a watch on. You're going to start by showing the ump the watch, and you take a check swing. And most of you guys, your kids, you'll be showing the ants what time it is. That's a hammer hand pivot point. What you should be doing is showing the pitcher what time it is. See the difference? Ump to ants, ump to pitcher. Okay? It's not quite the pitcher, but it's way closer. Okay? Any question on the hands? That's myth number one, is just no throw your hands, quick hands aside the ball, knob of the ball, no. Okay, that's a terrible cue. What do we got for two, Mr. Rudy? Oh. We want to explosively rotate to hit bombs. Nope. You might hit some bombs, but you'll be like Adam Dunn or the guys I mentioned earlier. The best modern, the most successful example of a guy with that kind of swing right now is Giancarlo Stanton. And Giancarlo Stanton has never hit 300 in a single season. He'll hit 30 or 40 bombs. When in June, July, when guys are hanging sliders, he'll hit it 450 feet. Then what happens in the ninth inning in the playoffs? 3 years ago, when Kimbrel's throwing nasty sliders, 5-pitch at bat in the ninth inning, he's the tie and run. If you don't believe me, you Sox fans will remember, he strikes them out. 4 of the 5 pitches were sliders. None of them fooled Stanton. He just can't hit a slider. He doesn't have the mechanics needed because, and I'll talk about this with step 3, is he lacks depth and a lot of other things. So if you rotate explosively, and it's funny, some of my guys, so a big thing is there'll be some famous dudes that train baseball guys, and you'll see monster truck tires in there, or basketball, and they got guys in there slamming monster truck tires, or hitting, weighted, partially deflated basketballs or things like that. Well, if you do that, you're teaching your player to apply force way out front. Hit that tire, which this is a little bit more of number 3, but if you rotate explosively, so this is, let me just kind of pause that for 1 second. This is how, if you really want to mess with someone who's coaching rotation, now they're not going to like you when you do this, but this is how you shatter that myth. J.D. Martinez, you know him? Yep, great hitter, right-handed hitter, perfect. Almost won the Triple Crown 2 years ago. Aaron Judge plays what position? Right field. How come at Yankee Stadium, J.D., and this is just a random example, you can find any hitter that does this. So I got a righty, and Judge is over there. So he hits a bomb in the right field seats over Judge's head. Okay, great. How'd he do it? Well, I don't have a degree for physical therapy. I'm not a CSCS. I didn't go to school for any of this movement or things like that. The guys will say it's all about hip rotation. So this is a classic hip rotation deal. Let's say this. All right, what we want to do is, we know that, and the data backs it up, we want to create at least 1.5 times your weight in ground force on the front foot. So, if you weigh 200 pounds, we want to strive and get that heel down, and some of them will have a ground force plate there to measure. So we stride, and now I want to apply 300 pounds of pressure into my front heel. So I drive that lead heel into the ground. That then stiffens the front leg, and we all know you got to hit against a stiff front leg, because now my hips can explosively rotate against that firm front side. Once the hips fly, now, boom, my shoulders will come and fly. Okay? Sounds great. Coach, how come when J.D. Martinez hits a ball over Judge's head, or when Big Papi hits a ball over the monster, Oppo, we'll go with J.D. example again, his belly button's facing, we'll talk about at launch, lag, and contact, and even after contact. So lag is about where it's at the catcher. And he'll be launch, lag, contact, half follow through. Where's my belly button facing? I'll do it from the front so you can see. Facing the second baseman. I'm a right-handed batter. If it's all about hip rotation, where would my belly button be facing if I'm a right-handed batter? Shortstop or third baseman. And they'll say things like, oh, well, he's a freak. Or, yeah, great hitter. Nope. There are certain mechanics. The guys that can't explain the mechanics get ripped. They either just say the guy's a physical freak, or they'll say, who are you, or where'd you play? No, that's irrelevant. Why can't you explain the belly button facing Oppo? Because the great hitters don't load rotationally, and unload rotationally. Boom. If I do that, the head of my bat maxes out way in front of the plate. Like this. See, the speed is out here when I rotate. I just rotate and unrotate right here. Nope. The greatest hitters, the bat accelerates here. I got plenty of video to prove it, not here. So if you load rotationally and unload rotationally, then your hands are going to fly out and we get rollover. Pitchers want you to do that, okay? So, explosive hip rotation. Look, I'm not saying it doesn't help to be, you'd rather be bigger and stronger than not, okay? But a hitter that is total rotation deal, he is going to be such a streaky hitter, and at the major league level, he's not going to hit good pitching. And that's why you'll see a lot of dudes who go to all-star games and things like that, and when the postseason comes, it's like they go in the tank. I mean, that explains it sometimes. Obviously, sometimes it's just they get cold or whatever. But so, myth number 2, you don't want to explode rotationally. If you swing with rotational force, then you're out here, way out in front of the plate. There's a lot of drills you can do to prove this. You can put a ball in on a guy, out, give him a longer back. I'll take a fungo, a 36-inch fungo, put the tee, hit a bomb over the left fielder's head, and everyone puts the tee, way out here. And then if you move the tee in, everyone wants to back up because they are loading and unloading rotationally. All right? So, myth number 2, we don't want to rotate. That promotes hooks and rollovers and the action on the ball. That's why you'll crush one over the third baseman, and it has that wicked fishtail. Sometimes it'll stay fair, but even if it stays fair, you're limiting ball flight and distance if you're putting a cross spin on it. And the Rhapsody and all these hit tracking devices that'll tell you spin rate and all that, that's why MLB organizations want that data, is they'd rather see, I think they know that you should have true backspin instead of a cross spin. All right? So, any questions so far on 1 and 2? Not yet. Let's see what we got for time. All right. Last one. Kind of a Jedi mind trick. You don't want to swing at the ball. And I'm not saying don't watch the ball. I'm saying the problem with most hitters is we swing at the ball. So what in the world does that mean? Okay, I was never a great golfer, but I went to the Stowe Acres Golf School. I was there for 3 days. First thing the guy, this is years ago, okay, when Tiger Woods, no one could touch him. First thing the guy said at 8 in the morning to 35 guys was, among other things, one of the major differences between y'all and Tiger Woods is y'all swing at the ball. He doesn't. He creates tremendous force in the club head and then launches it. And the ball just happens to be on a 2-inch piece of wood that gets in the way of the club head. The exact same thing applies to hitting. When we swing at the ball, we do number 1 and 2. I bring my hands and my bat accelerates out here. Swinging at the ball. When you swing at the ball, you're trying to time the collision, okay? That is a disaster. Hitting's hard enough as it is. That is an uphill battle you're going to lose, the better the pitching especially. Now, how do we know that? Okay, again, because if you can go on some of my social media stuff, or you can just even look this up yourself on YouTube. On Instagram, I'm the Hitting Consultants. It's the same thing on Facebook. Twitter is @swing_then_hit. @swing_then_hit. But I got some pictures up there of, so Barry Bonds, he's a lefty obviously, but his barrel blurs here. Most of us and the guys I talk about from the 80s, Adam Dunn style, their barrel blurs here. So that's a 5-foot difference. When Barry Bonds and Cabrera and Yelich and Trout, when those guys come to bat, it's essentially like the ump made the pitcher move back 5 feet because they literally can wait longer to decide to swing. If you swing like Rob Deere and rotate like crazy and bleed your hands, you have to commit and decide to swing. I mean, when the ball is whatever out there 18 to 25 feet away, depending on the velocity and the pitch type and that sort of stuff. There's a lot, the better the pitching, there's a lot that can happen in that last 20 feet. Cabrera, Bonds, those guys, Manny, they can wait. I mean, you just look at some of their clips. They can wait so long to commit to swing that they can lay off that slider that Giancarlo can't, and things like that. So last summer I had dinner with Luke Mailey's, a catcher for the Blue Jays, when they were in town playing the Sox, and I said, "Who's the best hitter?" Joey Votto. He said he did. I didn't even finish my question. Joey Votto, best hitter I ever caught against. And he said myth number 3, but he didn't realize it. He was wording it different. He said, now this guy was, I don't know if he won a Gold Glove, but he was defensively ranked the top. They have all these metrics that measure defensive catchers. Either a year or two ago, he was number 1 in the American League. Okay, so this is a guy that defensively knows his stuff. He said, because when Votto hits, the ball's in my mitt. I got it. And he smokes a bullet in the gap the other way. Luke is right, based on that pitcher's fastball, and he's used to the timing of it or whatever. The other 8 dudes in the Reds lineup, yeah, the ball would have been in your mitt. But not Votto, because he can wait longer to decide to swing. So the timing in Luke's head of fastball's in my mitt, fastball's in my mitt, and now this is one guy out of 9 that, what the heck, it's not my mitt. Because again, he launches here. Barrel depth. You're just launching the bat in one move, okay? The easiest analogy to think of this is, if you're going to get on the pike and fly into Boston, you have a Ford F-350 and you're towing a small boat, okay? No one in the world's on the road right now because of this crazy thing. So you floor it. You're trying to get up to 80 miles an hour. Let's say you swing the bat 80. You're trying to get up to 80 miles an hour. You'll get up to 80, but it's going to take a bit of time, right? Well, what if you have a, I don't know, Lamborghini and you're not towing anything? You take a peek, no one's in the 4 lanes, I punch it. That Lambo gets up to speed way quicker than your F-350 diesel towing a boat. It's the same exact thing with hitters' barrels. The great hitters have instant launch and speed. Amateur hitters, and again, when I say amateur, I'm talking about amateur level swings, and there are plenty of pros who have an amateur level swing. Low level swingers have to get up to speed. They ramp up to speed, and it's way out front. The great hitters have a more instant speed, and you just look at the video and you can see, you can look at it in full motion or sometimes half speed, you see where the blur of the barrel is, and that'll tell you a lot. So when you're launching here, you're not swinging at the ball. Again, you're watching the ball, yeah, with your eyes, but you want to essentially pretend that the ball is over here, because you just got to copy the greats. Donaldson does it, Manny, Cabrera, Bonds, all those guys on their best in-game home run swings, right there is where the acceleration phase is. On bad hitters, the acceleration phase is here. And when we play in, when we're playing these leagues here, even like some of the younger inner city and those leagues, if you know what you're looking at, it's clear as day I mean, a lot of you guys coach teams, men's leagues and AAU, and some of you guys pitch. Man, I'm telling you, you can self-scout. It's so easy to see who's susceptible to certain pitches if you know what you're looking at. So, myth number 3, you don't want to swing at the ball. You want to launch the barrel instantly rearward, right there. And then you have a 1-speed fan blade compared to a get it up to speed push out front, hit from 55 feet, whatever. So, there's myth number 3. Stevie Miller, what up, buddy? Marecki, I can help your swing. Although, again, pitchers that are over 40 aren't really my target demographic. Guys, any questions? Love talking hitting. It's better when I get a little interaction and questions, but I'll assess anyone's swing. I know, like I said earlier, a lot of you guys have your kids are playing or nephews or whatever. Free video assessments. I do it all the time. People send me stuff on social media, whatever. But it's funny because the kids that hit with me or their dads or college dudes, they all think that the teams I'm on must score 16 runs a game, and they don't really understand that. Some guy who's 42 who's been playing baseball his whole life doesn't want to be told, oh yeah, dude, you're pushing your barrel and you're swinging at the ball. So I don't actually sit in the dugout and talk mechanics with you guys. I know it's not the way it is, but again, to get our minds off this craziness that's out there, you can ask me anything. I thought someone asked something. Some of you guys that just joined, we're shattering 3 myths. Myth number 1, don't bring your hands inside the ball, because then you hit with 5 pounds instead of 200 pounds. Bad, good, okay? Matter of fact, it's exactly the opposite. In the correct movement, the correct sequence of the swing, hands actually go last. And until you feel it or know what to look for, it's kind of like, what are you talking about? Everyone told me my whole world, hands go first. No, in the proper sequence of the high-level swing, hands actually go last. And when they do go, they perpendicular swivel. They don't go at the ball, okay? Myth number 2, don't rotate explosively, because then you're just going to roll over, hook. I mean, you might get lucky, like I said, and you're going to catch one here and there, but your margin of error is like, you got about a basketball size hot zone, about a basketball size inner third belt high of depth, whereas a great hitter will have, like this whole area and depth, in, out, front of the plate, deep, in and out. So, and myth number 3, don't swing at the ball. Instantly launch the barrel rearward, because I want to copy the pros. There's a lot of mechanics involved to do all those things, obviously. But you can see that when I do that, watch that yellow tape. When I do that right there, what do the hands do? If my hands go here, the depth is way different. Watch. You want that, not, see the difference? The blur is here instead of here. So, I mean, that's a foot of depth just right there. If you, or your kids or a team of teaching, if you just one thing that you teach them is just perpendicular swivel, hand point, just that alone, that cue alone will help a lot of hitters, okay? What do you think? Any questions? Rudy, you want to wrap it up or give it a few more minutes? It's funny seeing the names in the room and thinking of these leagues. I picture everybody swinging my head, and including my own. And I don't have a great in-game swing at all, and I'm the first to admit that, because I took literally what all these coaches over the years I went to said and did, and I would go and obsess with drills that do this. So I can't get it out of my own swing. I will once in a while, but not consistently. I'll do this. I'll take a pitch and I'm like, what are you doing? You bled the knob, you get off your rear foot, this, that, and the other thing. So sometimes it's tough to get it out of your own deal. All right. Mr. Rudy thinks that's good. Hey, guys, hopefully get back on the field soon. And just getting ready for the sun to shine and play ball again. All right? I'll see you guys out there. Appreciate it.